ask the group chief executive, did you also ask him whether or not he was vetted?
He was not vetted.
And I'm saying, did you ask him? And what was his response?
He was not vetted. He told me he's not vetted, and he's not going to submit himself, at the end, he's not going to submit himself to the process.
What then becomes your role and responsibility? The allegations contained and the information at your disposal pertaining to Eskom allegation of financial misconduct. That's my first question.
Thank you, sir. The first thing I did receive, firstly, I want to emphasize, I already explained how I got onto into the process, is via the intervention request of retired Major General Boyson. I think it will be appropriate, maybe, if you really want to hear what happened last year, and the fact that the initial team was not established. What really happened there, because I wasn't part of those discussions between him, the National Commissioner, etc. I did, however, from the beginning of July, start to interact on his behalf with Mr. Andre de Ruyter. What I did do, what did happen, I received information, not from Mr. de Ruyter, but from the Fibers Group, on allegations, very, very broad allegations, etc. They gave operational reports, very, very operational reports, that I could not at that stage validate. My concern at the time is they came in from the perspective that they are going to run, they're going to use psychological warfare tactics in order to support Mr. de Ruyter. Now, to me, being a police officer, also with an intelligence background, that is very dangerous. Why would you use that kind of tactics? So that immediately contaminated the space. Why would that be necessary? Okay. So yes, I did receive. We looked through it. We could not validate. I requested some validation, just like the unique identification of some of the role players that were alleged, and we could not get part of it. Nonetheless, I did pass this on to the DPCI investigation team working on Eskom. But what we did, we agreed that we had to have a more comprehensive approach and be very careful that we are not taken by an entity on its own. None of this intelligence was actually validated. It's actually done in parallel with intelligence services, which again is a risk. Therefore, again, my submission to the Minister, as well as head of the Hawks, after it became clear that the National Commissioner would not going to establish a proper team for this, that we should be establishing such a team. That did not transpire by March this year. So the information that I received was made operationally available to the investigation team at the Hawks, but also to the team that the National Commissioner established at Eskom, sitting at Eskom, I think it's under the authority of General Jacobs. It is made available to them as well. They're focusing more on the transactional nature of crime, etc. Thank you, sir. Sorry, your question about...
If I hear you correctly, you are saying...
Secondly, he wants to conclude.
Sorry,
there's a question you missed.
The one part of the financial irregularities, etc. You asked about that as well. I cannot recall anything specifically. Most of the information was about, you can say, the criminality, organized, very little about the organized crime, but more about the criminality around Eskom, etc. I don't recall anything on the financial irregularities on Eskom. Thank you.
So, if I hear you correctly, you are saying the information at your disposal at the time, you could not validate such, and none of the intelligence information at your disposal was validated. Did that make your work difficult, and what exactly do you mean the information was not validated? Whose responsibility is it to validate such information in order for you to pursue your work?
So thank you very much for that. That is typically what I referred to previously, the role of state security. For instance, they are responsible for our state security agency, SSA, the old National Intelligence. So I worked with them. They were also part of the team when we engaged Eskom. I shared some of this, the information with them in order to validate it. In other words, corroborate it, get substantiating information. And that is where it was just shut down. All cooperation with them, they just shut it down. In other words, they didn't want to deal with it. Now, if you start with a criminal investigation, certain types of investigation, interceptions, intrusion, those are very difficult to do that on low-level cases, etc. Therefore, we said we had to establish a properly constituted team or between stakeholders, from various stakeholders, in order to deal with it and to make sure that we are not being led by the nose on intelligence. Remember, within the intelligence services, there's various mechanisms that will make sure that you authenticate the information, you validate your sources, etc. None of this was in place with the information source that was available to us from Mr. Director. I can also not expect that because it doesn't come from the discipline. You guys can understand that. Thank you.
So what then becomes the responsibility of the person sharing the information with you in terms of the allegation as presented to you in that so-called intelligence report? Was it enough for you to be given that information? There was no expectation of additional information from the former Group Chief Executive or Eskom as an entity?
I'm not sure whether I understand it correctly. Let me answer you on this. In my engagement...
So what I'm trying to say, having received the intelligence report, was there any outstanding information that you required from the person making those allegations, or were you satisfied that the information given to you was enough for you to start with your work? There was nothing outstanding or missing for you to start processing the information at your disposal?
So thank you. All information given to me was incomplete. Okay. You referred to a report. What report are you referring to? Because there's this whole notion...
I'm referring to the intelligence report that was conducted by a private company, Pfizer's report, and we are told that that report was shared with you and you have full access to such a report.
Okay, interesting. I do not know of a report. As I said, I've received various information reports, operational reports. I've not seen a report. After Mr. Director's attendance of his media, that I think it was, yes, that one.
Yes.
After that, I received a WhatsApp from retired Commissioner George Fibers. He said that he doesn't know what report Mr. Director is referring to because he never gave Eskom a report. Neither did they focus on equating the ANC. So Mr. Director, as he said in his WhatsApp, would not passed on. He has to take accountability for his statements. So the whole notion about a report, I don't know, and I've also briefed my management and the National Commissioner, I don't know about a report. There was operational information exchange with me. There might have been other reports that I'm not privy to. But as far as I know, there was not a singular report. Thank you.
Are you saying to us the private company that conducted intelligence operation at Eskom and concluded its work in a form of an intelligence report and that report was submitted to the Group Chief Executive, you are not in a position of that report, or you were not in a position at the time when you were still active as a police officer. You do not have such intelligence report, and you only became aware that there is a so-called intelligence report that was conducted by a private company, like all of us on the news. Mr. Andre de Ruyter did not at any point present to you an intelligence report from Fivers. Is that the case?
He never gave a intelligence report. So I want to differentiate between operational engagement, where information was shared, but a concluded information intelligence report I've not seen it, neither have I received it from Mr. de Ruyter. And again,
what exactly did you get?
Operational intelligence reports from informers.
I'm specifically asking about the Group Chief Executive interaction with you as the person that was responsible to liaise between Eskom and SAPS. What exactly did you receive from Mr. Andre de Ruyter on behalf of Eskom for you to investigate, and how far did you go investigating what you received? So I'm interested, because now I'm confused. Initially, based on what is before us, is that you have access to the intelligence report. Lately, the SIU has also got hold of such a report that speaks about allegation of certain senior politicians' involvement, and we're not privy to such. All we know is that the report is with you, and the report is with SIU. SIU is still busy with the report. You are saying to us today you don't have such a report. What exactly did you get from Mr. Andre de Ruyter in relation to allegations of financial misconduct and alleged people who happen to hold position of authority and have taken oath in protecting the public purse? We are interested in following the money as it relates to misappropriation of taxpayers' fund. That's the mandate of SCOP. Thank you.
Again, I'm going to re-emphasize, I have not received a report that you're referring to from Mr. de Ruyter. What I did receive, I attended meetings with Andre de Ruyter and the Fivers Group, during which information was shared. Didn't go via Mr. de Ruyter. It was basically came from the Fivers Group. They were talking, they were giving some documents on a stick afterwards, etc. So there was, according to me, no singular report coming from Mr. de Ruyter. They might have written it up after I was after I've withdrawn, but I've not received that. What they did have, the first part, I call it the organigram, where they had an elaborate organigram with all the allegations and cartels and so on, which was not substantiated.
So your involvement was based on a meeting you had with Mr. de Ruyter and the group, Fivers Group. You had meeting and presentation was given, and nothing in terms of a report was given to you. You were promised to be given information on a stick, and that did not happen.
No, sir, you're not listening to what I'm saying, please.
Yes.
I said they would provide that to me afterwards, but it was low-level intelligence reports, information reports, source reports, etc. There's not a report from the CEO from Eskom.
So you got information from a private company?
Yes, in the presence of Mr. de Ruyter and in subsequent meetings. But Mr. de Ruyter himself did not finish that report. There was a report that he did share with me that was done by the I think the head of security, in terms of widespread from corruption, but that was way back in the beginning. That's not based on the FIVES intelligence.
So having worked...
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I think where we're going to need assistance is the timeline of these events. Because our understanding, to pull in what you're saying, was that a meeting took place where Mr. Director raised matters with the National Commissioner. Then the National Commissioner designated yourself. Right. So I think that's where the nub is, because you are now bringing in and introducing an element of Major General Boyson preceding your involvement. So I think the clarity to help Honorable Hatebe's question is, at what point did you come into the Eskom investigation space? 2, who appointed you to it? Because the National Commissioner has never said anything about Major General Boyson. Not a word. It's the first time I'm hearing it, and I'm just going through my notes here. It's not there. Because Honorable Hatebe is correct. Our understanding was that the National Commissioner was approached in a meeting at an academy, and then at that point you were delegated, and then he met with you and gave you the information, including this. But what I'm getting now is that as the FISA's investigation was going on, you are getting regular updates. So I'm just trying to sort out the timeline for us, because I think it's a bit muddy. This was July 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah. So that's the clarity I just want. I'm sorry, Honorable, to interrupt you.
Mr. Chair, can try. According to my knowledge, there was a lot of meetings that preceded my involvement in this instance in it. So there were engagements. As I said, there was engagements between the National Commissioner and Major General Boyson, where he requested and actually offered a contract to Major General Boyson to come and lead the Eskom investigations. Okay. Now, was that never, that didn't come out, Mr. Chair? Okay. So that's why I say it might be fruitful, because if you look at the intent that was formulated and that we worked towards, it just never realized. And Major General Boyson will be able to articulate that very, very, because he was directly involved. He went to speak to his group CEO in order to get authority to assist the police in terms of that. He contacted me and asked me to assist, where after the National Commission then said, it's fine, I can continue with it. And I think in August, they actually, formalized that.
So, having served for so many years in anti-corruption unit and as a brigadier police officer, when you were interacting with this private company, didn't you question the legality of having a private company accessing data of Eskom, with your understanding and what you've always highlighted to us of Eskom, or well, some of the plants in Eskom being a national key point? Did you sought clarity in terms of the legality of the private company having access to a national key point institution in executing your work?
So, to be very honest, I didn't need to source clarity. I knew it was not legal. Whether it was allowed, and that is why I went and engaged the state security agency, specifically the counterintelligence environment, to dig into this to see what is behind it. So yes, that is the support I requested from them, and that is the support they did not provide. Thank you.
So you knew that it was illegal. Did you continue engaging with them?
I listened to them, and the understanding was, which I discussed with Fivers, that there is no contractual obligation. Neither am I going to give any taskings, so I'm going to hear what they put on the table and process it for our purposes. But we have to be extremely vigilant as not just to take any of information and as fact, because there were doubts, the process and the sources could not be validated.
As a police officer dealing with issues of national security, understanding that someone in your meeting has in his possession illegal information or information contained illegally, did you raise that matter? And how often after your first meeting did you continue to engage with the entity or private company that has information contained illegally? Your engagement with that particular company, knowing the parameters, roles and responsibility of a private company vis-a-vis state security agency, and the information obtained from so-called national key point.
Mr. Chair, for me, again, I'm going to clarify, let's not jump the gun. I didn't say the information was gained illegally. Okay? They might have sources using private intelligence and so on that might have been gained illegally. But the essence of employing a company to work on intelligence for Eskom was, to me, highly irregular. Okay, so it's a two levels. It's a role within Eskom, but the transactional information is, if I can coin that.
How many times did you interact with them?
So it is. I've had quite a few. They say 10 times. Well, it's I can't remember the exact. I've had various engagements with them with the intention of hearing what they had to say. That I have not made a determination that was gained illegally.
I'm raising this because earlier on you indicated that you asked whether or not the staff was vetted when you were engaging with the group chief executive. So automatically that will necessarily indicate to me that we are dealing with a person that knows the prescript of the law and the do's and don'ts in terms of doing his work. When you ask the group chief executive, did you also ask him whether or not he was vetted?
He was not vetted.
And I'm saying, did you ask him? And what was his response?
He was not vetted. He told me he's not vetted, and he's not going to submit himself at the end. He's not going to submit himself to the process.
What then becomes your role and responsibility in that regard, when you know that you are dealing with Mr. Hadebe, who's not vetted, and Mr. Hadebe is in possession of intelligence information? What then becomes your obligation and responsibility as a law enforcement officer, someone who has taken oath to serve and to protect the country?
Again, two things. Firstly, who appointed you?
Come again?
Firstly, who appointed you, Mr. Hadebe, in this role play that we are doing? Who appointed you? It was his obligation to ensure that you are security competent, because that's a precondition for the post. Okay.
I understand that part, but you
Yes.
also have a responsibility. Two wrongs don't make one right. If you become aware, I'm asking you, if you become aware that whoever appointed Mr. Hadebe did not ensure that he's vetted, by virtue of those that appointed me, you will also continue with you knowing fully that you are dealing with an individual ensuring certainty responsibility in terms of because someone appointed him, does it justify you proceeding with certain issues and allegations of this magnitude?
All right. Firstly, again, let's stick around 30 minutes. I did raise this with Minister Pravin Gordhan in the meeting. And his response to it was, but the two of you must sort this out, meaning myself, Mr. Director.
So, meaning you've indicated to the Minister that Mr. Director is not vetted.
That is correct, and they conceded to it. And then Mr. Pravin Gordhan said, but we must sort it out between myself and the Director, which is not my mandate. So that's the first part of the question. So, Mr. Chair, just for you to understand the, I can almost say, absurdity of what's facing us. Just basic stuff was not put into place. Basic legal requirements. Now, towards the second end of it, the actual classified information. I did not share any classified information with them. Neither did I at that stage perceive any of the information. They received this from their own informers and so forth, as being the source, that the source of that was classified, or that per se was when it came into my possession, I classified it as confidential because of even the way the reports were written. You could identify informers, etc.
So if I were to summarize this whole saga, by virtue of having information that is not validated, you could not proceed with investigation. Am I correct to summarize? And for us to be able to ascertain whether or not certain action was taken, this has to be verified by the State Security Agency, which, when I asked you, you indicated that it was their responsibility to validate the information at the disposal. At the time of you getting the information and at the time of your retirement, the information at your disposal was not validated and you could not proceed with it. Am I correct in summarizing like that?
No, you're not.
Okay. Please give us the sense of progress made and what, which stage of the investigation when you left the investigation was at.
Ms. Gedebe, can I suggest, let's break your questions into smaller bits, because you almost like you're asking for a whole season of soap operas. The first thing, the involvement of the Fivers Group. I raised that with State Security with the intention of them coming in and taking responsibility to oversee what is going on. Secondly, the information that came in, it wasn't that it was lying there. I availed it to our investigators in order to find if they, in their investigations, came across this and could validate it and say, well, listen, this we're interested and this we're interested. That didn't happen, so it's not that it lay idle, but we still had to formally validate it. You understand? That's a formal process you go through, your sources, etc., to make very sure that you are not played. Now, I could not conclude, as I said, I didn't even know there was a final report. If I assume now, there was a final report from the Fivers Group, because I can show you the WhatsApp from Commissioner Fivers, which said he's never given the report to Andre de Ruyter. So that was in, I think, end of February this year. So there might have been work that was done after I withdrew